it looks like we are live. I apologize that I'm about 5 minutes late. I see there are a couple of people here. Excellent. So we'll address all of that. The first question is very appropriate. So I had a couple of technical difficulties. One of the new scopes that was introduced at SHOT Show, that means I can already talk about it, is a primary arms PLX compact 1.5 to 12. And interestingly, the very first question I got here is about that. I actually have it set up on a column so that I can show you what the reticle looks like and all that sort of stuff. So we'll talk about that momentarily. We'll talk about the Voodoo. I don't have that one, but I did look at it relatively carefully. I took some notes that I'm going to grab. As is always the case, please confirm that you can see me and hear me well enough. On my end, it looks like everything is working as it should. So we should be good to go. Okay. So again, I apologize for being a little bit haphazard. Originally, Mr. SlavGuns was going to join me, but he just messaged me that he lives out in the boonies in Pennsylvania, that they're having some sort of issues with their internet, so he might not be able to hop onto the live stream after all. Maybe we'll do another one with him next week, depending on how much we cover. Did you discuss the Apex Prism 1 to 4? We'll talk about it. I looked at it. Where was I? Yeah, so Mr. SlavGuns is probably not going to join me today. He has the link. If his internet perks up, he might. Marcus Holm from Precision Rifle Media. He's got a podcast. He's a good friend, and we shot a match together. Hope we'll shoot more. He will probably hop on a little bit later. And Steve from Armasight is going to join me. I looked at some Armasight optics recently, the thermal and the night vision, and they had some new stuff at SHOT Shows, so he'll be able to talk about that. I don't know for sure when all of these people are going to hop on, so I'll just go about my merry way, answer questions as they come up, and if somebody joins me, we'll adjust accordingly. I did bring a couple of scopes with me that I thought you guys may be interested in seeing. One is the primary arms PLX compact 1.5 to 12, which was kind of honestly one of the highlights of the show because I think very highly of that scope. I've seen a few different versions of it over the years. It's nice to see that there's a production one here. What else do I have? So another scope that was new-ish. So I tried to test last year GPO Century Ultra Short for 16 by 44. The one I looked at had an issue with the windage turret, so I sent it back to them. Northman, okay. So we'll see. They have a new reticle, which I think is a decent match. Reservations for the platform. Mr. Northman brought up the Theos. That would be this, the Theos 210 by 44. That's with a sunshade by itself. It's a bit shorter. The funny thing, I'm going to show you a picture. Last time I was at the range, this is what I was practicing with. I'm going to share my screen and share a picture so that you guys can see it. It's very interesting that this idea of a medium power variable optic all of a sudden is kind of coming to the forefront, and that is a good thing. So this is from my last trip to the range. On the left is the PA PLXC 1.5 to 12. On the right is a Theos 2 to 10 by 42. So I have some relatively adequate familiarity with both scopes, and I can right now what I have on a collimator is the primary arms, and if you want to look through the Theos or the GPO, I can swap them out fairly quickly. Okay. That having been said, let's see what's a good way to start. So let's start with some generalities, and then I'm just gonna go and look through questions and try to answer them as they come in. In the meantime, if you have a question, please put it in the chat box. I am just gonna start at the top and go through that rather than try to do a dry lecture on stuff. Overall, in terms of new stuff, I thought that SHOT Show this year was relatively sedate. It was mostly rather, evolutionary things, and I didn't see a whole lot of stuff that's very new. On the other hand, quite a lot of stuff that was, promised in development, etc., is now coming in, and a lot of these products are really looking mature. For example, the Primary Arms PLX compact line is looking really good. So we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out, but nothing revolutionary happened at SHOT Show. Nothing blew me away. I just saw incremental improvements, shoring up of product holes, introduction of some products that were, quite necessary, perhaps useful for the particular brands, but nothing that knocked my socks off. Right? There wasn't anything truly earth-shattering. It doesn't mean there wasn't some good stuff. Some really cool things are coming, but again, just nothing that wowed me so that I can't stop talking about it. Okay. All right. With that out of the way, let's talk about primary arms, 1.5 to 12, since I've got it here. So, in many ways, this might be my favorite of medium power variables in the market right now. Partly because I think in many ways it sticks with the concept of an MPVO better than almost everything else out there. When I say almost, I sort of still hold the opinion that in many ways March 1.5 to 15 by 42 is perhaps the purest expression of what the medium power variable optic is. But March is complicated, and March is relatively complicated to build. It's hard to pull off, and because of the 10x rector ratios, there are some sacrifices. But if you look at the whole envelope of different applications that something like March 1.5 to 15 can cover, it's probably still the king of medium power variable optics. But of course, there are compromises. The somewhat less expensive scope that, in my opinion, sort of addresses the whole medium power variable optic niche the best is the new primary arms PLX compact, 1.5 to 12 by 36. Let me pop a picture how it looks mounted on a relatively conventional AR-15. So, can I make this bigger? I'm just not a big fan of iCloud. I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. So this is what it looks like on a nicely accurate AR. Okay. There's a lot of nice things you can say about the scope, and it deserves all of them. It is nicely worked out. The eyepiece is excellent on all of the PLX compact line. The 8x erector ratio is, on one hand, is relatively challenging. On the other hand, they are pulling it off very, very well. The medium power variable optics are not supposed to be the ultra long range, ultra precise, etc. Device. Okay, Marcus is here. I'm gonna add him to the stream. He's home earlier than I thought. So where was I? Okay. So Marcus, if you can hear me, I'm going to talk a little bit about PA. Jump in whenever you've got your audio video worked out. Was it? Yeah, medium power variable optic is basically supposed to be giving you a lot of capability in a compact and lightweight package. So there, a broad magnification range that may introduce some other compromises is not really a major issue per se. And in this case, honestly, it's not really an issue at all because I'm not seeing any of the usual artifacts that come with high magnification ratios. It's a very, very nice scope. Eyepiece is exceptional, super easy to get behind, even on 12 power, despite the smallish 36 millimeter objective diameter. The 1.5 axis worked out very, very nicely. The reticle has diffractive illumination, so it is nuclear bright. And that means that on 1.5 power, should you choose to, you can go really, really fast. Much faster than you can on a 2-power optic. For example, especially if you consider how nice and how forgiving the eyepiece of this new PLX compact is. There is side focus. It focuses close if you need it, and far, which is fine. Like I said, the illumination is a rotary dial, which works very, very nicely. The turrets on mine are capped. They send it to you also with, hey Marcus, they send it to you also with an extra turret that you can leaves it exposed, but there's still no zero stop. So is the big question is that is lack of a zero stop a major problem for this design? And it kind of depends on how you use the scope. I would probably prefer to have something like a single turn 10 or 12 milliradian turret with a zero stop. I think that would be ideal for me because I don't anticipate dialing a huge amount with this thing. And you can always do the old trick if you really have to shoot very far away. If you really need to shoot really far away, you can always dial and then also use the reticle for additional holdover. And once we get to the reticle, that's where primary arms tends to be a little bit controversial because they built their brand around this whole ACSS reticle line and did so very, very successfully. But I think now they are outgrowing some of the ACSS stuff. Some of the ACSS reticles to me are a little bit busy, but they sell really, really well. As they're going into higher price ranges, for more serious shooters, you kind of have to go a little bit simpler with reticles, especially on the high magnification scopes. What they do with low power variables is not bad, and it's gotten better. How it's going to pan out with a medium power variable, I simply don't know. They offer two reticles in it. One is their BDC tree, and another one is this mill tree grid type of thing. And since they know me well, the one they sent me is the one with the mill grid, and I am going to pop the view through the scope on here. So it's sitting there looking at the collimator. This little spot you see in the tree around 456 milliradian. I don't know where it is from. I think it's in a camera. I probably need to pull the lens off and clean it so it's not going through the scope. I am going to walk over to the collimator so you will be able to hear me. I've got a wireless microphone, but I will not see your comments until I get back to the computer. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the magnifications and I'm going to show you what it looks like with illumination, at least looking into the green field of the collimator. Okay, so right now we are on 8 power. I'm going to take you up to 12. Now we're on 12. I don't think I have it perfectly focused. That's kind of why I was a little bit late to start the live stream. I was messing with the setup and now I'm looking at it. It's not perfect, but it gives you an idea. The whole business with this reticle is that it's not really intended to be used for dialing. It's intended to be used primarily with a reticle for holding. It's a 1 milliradian grid. That is not super controversial. The grid goes down to 15 milliradian, which maybe a little more than I would do, but it's not a ton. A similar reticle that they had in a low power variable I didn't like, but in the medium power variable, it's not bad. I think it is pretty reasonable. Well, now we're back on 8, 6, 5, 4. I'm going to move it a little bit closer to the center of the field of view. 2 and 1.5. So 1.5, obviously, the image is going to look quite small. It's hard for me to do much with it with the collimator setup, but what I can do is I can turn on the illumination. When it's on 10 power, it's nuclear bright. It's so bright that it's saturating my camera. This is easily day bright. This is 9, this is 8, there is off in every setting. It's off, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3 gets a lot milder, 2, and 1. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see the illuminated reticle a little bit better. So I'm going to cover it with my hand. You see that the horseshoe and the little chevron in the middle are illuminated. Okay, and I am going to bump up the illumination a little bit. It's on low power, it's not too bad in terms of low light and stuff. It's reasonable. On high power, it's nuclear bright. We are on 4 right now. This is 4 out of 10. Okay. This illumination is kind of a big deal. So I'm going back to 8. I'm going to again move things around so that the collimator reticle doesn't get in the way too much. So the controversial parts of this reticle and the stuff that I see people complaining about the most are the center aiming chevron. So the horseshoe is basically a 1 milliradian internal diameter, 2 milliradian internal diameter, 1 milliradian radius. So you have empty 1 milliradian space around the chevron. Some people will say it's a little bit too much, but it's workable. It's not ideal. It's workable. Remember, it's not a long-range precision scope. It's for shooting minute of man to the practical range of your rifle. It has then 0.5 milliradian steps outside the horseshoe for bigger wind, that kind of stuff. And then between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 milliradian, there are these vertical ranging bars, which I am not crazy about. I've been shooting guns for a long time. I've never had a chance to use one. There are also these ranging bars at 2, 3, and 4 milliradian, and they are to range an 18-inch wide plate or something roughly the size of a human chest. I am similarly not super excited about these because if I've got some holdover and I want to be able to hold just a little bit away from center to compensate for wind or something like that, these variable bar lengths is not my favorite thing. But on the other hand, I don't think it's a showstopper that people make it out to be. People like to nitpick. So overall, with a mill reticle, I think the scope is viable. The ranging bars in the horizontal, that's not my thing. But again, they are far enough where it doesn't really get in the way. Aside from that, the reticle has good visibility with or without illumination. So, you can see that adequately well. With all reticles, once you focus to the eyepiece, there is going to be, for all high rector ratios, there's going to be some spot where you kind of lose focus a little bit here, right around 2 power. For the camera, the reticle goes slightly out of focus between 2 and 3, and then snaps back into focus, right? So that's kind of the artifact of a high rector ratio. You don't see it very much with your human eye because your eye adjusts a little bit. My camera is set on fully manual settings. So see, there's 3, the reticle blurs a little bit. Not too much. It's actually not a lot. Your eye compensates for it. 1.5, it's sharp again. And so right around 2.5, 3 power, there is some reticle defocus. Again, your eye is going to compensate for it very rapidly. You won't see a thing. You can really only pick it up with a camera. Okay. All right, I'm gonna walk back to the computer and see what questions, if any, popped up, and we'll go from there. All right, Mr. Cunt Bucket is here. Alrighty, I am back. Marcus, what's happening with you, buddy?
Oh,
Marcus?
I think I'm here. How about the volume? Can you hear me as well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent.
All right, and Steve from Armasight is about to join us as well.
Oh, cool.
Did you get all the way to Armasight, Marcus, or not?
You know what? I walked past it, but I didn't see any of their offerings, so this will all be new to
Okay.
me.
All right, so then we'll let him. I will let him walk us through it. All right.
I probably missed it.
So
What was the weight on that new 1.5 to 12 there?
it's pretty light. I think it's around 20 ounces, something like that.
Okay.
Or 19. I'm gonna look it up actually. I didn't weigh it. I popped it into the mount immediately.
I remember
And
thinking that it was relatively light for
it is
what it
very light.
was.
I am looking on the website. There we go. It is nice and light. They did a really, really good job. I liked it, a lot, honestly. So 9.75 inches in length, diffractive reticle. All right, here it goes. Here's the specs. And looking at the specs that are too small, it looks like it's just under 19 ounces.
Yeah.
For a scope of this type, just under 19 ounces, just under 20 ounces, 19.67. So just under 20 ounces, and mine has the Griffin Mill G2 reticle. All right, Mr. Steve Lemonov or Lemonov, I don't know how he pronounces his name in English, is here from Armasight. I'm gonna let him in. All right, Steve, whenever you've got your audio video figured out, please let us know. So before we switch to talking about thermal, since Steve is here, he doesn't have a ton of time. Any questions on what I showed you right now with PLX Compact, with the reticle and all that sort of stuff? We'll get back to the MPVO discussion after we are done talking about thermals, because again, Steve is not going to be with us for too long. When I say he's not going to be with us, I mean on this live stream. Overall, I'm hoping he's going to be with us for a long time. I've known him for a long time. Marcus, who is now used to my occasional sixth sense of humor, is appreciating the careful choice of words.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens if Steve even joins. I want proof of life here.
What Steve does not know is one of the guys I introduced him to texted me yesterday and made me promise to give Steve a hard time. So.
Oh, Coop? Yeah.
Yep.
I thought.
All right. Let's see. Let's get you on here. All right, Steve from Armasight. All right, Is that a real backdrop, or did you figure out how to do digital backdrop?
No, that's my real backdrop.
A sword and an axe. I'm beginning to, I always thought you were a reasonable human being. Now I see some weaponry over there. I like it even more.
Awesome. I should have brought the big toys.
You should have. I used to do this European martial art thing.
Which martial arts? Jiu-jitsu?
Well, no, generally speaking, I've done jiu-jitsu. I'm mostly a Muay Thai guy. I'd still teach Muay Thai and do a few other things. But no, there is this thing called European martial arts. That's where they put a bunch of armor on you, put you in a ring, give you a blunt instrument, and you try to bludgeon some other lunatic like you to death.
I've seen that. I've seen another one where it's like two guys in the suits, like in a lowered, like a square, and they toss a gun and they fight over it, and it's like airsoft, and it's interesting. It's an
interesting idea, yeah. So I'm a relatively substantial gentleman overall. So they basically put a bunch of armor on me, gave me a big hammer, and said, "See that guy? We don't need him." It was a lot of fun.
So. It can be, unless you get hit in the
head. Yeah, correct. Unless the guy hits you first, then it's not fun at all. It's like it's like your head is inside a bell, and when that thing starts resonating, it's very interesting.
for sure.
A lot of fun. Anyhow, so I started out by basically taking questions. We have stuff in the chat box, and I know you don't have a ton of time. So I don't think you've been on my live stream before. So
No,
I'm gonna
so
give
this
you
is
a
my first
moment.
time. Long-term viewer, first-time visitor, as they say.
Long-term view. I don't know what's wrong with you, man, but okay. So we'll do this. I'm gonna give you a chance to introduce yourself. Tell us in a few words your background and a little bit about Armasight. I've talked about Armasight in the past, straight. So, but just give us kind of a top-line view of where the company is, and then let's switch to SHOT Show, the new things, and what you guys are up to.
Sure, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, my name is Steve Lamanov, and I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Armasight. I've been in electro-optics, thermal night vision business for about close to two decades now. I started with another brand. I was there for a long time, and
That shall not be named.
I worked for ATN for almost 17 years. That was my previous brand.
I've almost made a career out of making fun of ATN. So
no, I know. They get a bad rap, and some of it's self-induced, some of it's other things, but it is what it is. I'm in a different place now.
So before we move on, I will go on the record. All the people I've met from ATN were very nice. I wasn't as excited about the products.
Again, people are good. Products are hit or miss sometimes, as you mentioned.
You didn't think I was going to let you get away with not talking about it, right?
Yeah, hey, it is what it is, and that's
it
the
is
past.
what it is. Exactly.
It's the past.
But for what it's worth, I like Armasight products a lot more. So let's talk about Armasight.
Yeah, well, Armasight has a long history. It was established in 2011. It's kind of had a tumultuous history because at first it was an offshoot of ATN. A lot of the people that used to be part of ATN started Armasight initially. About 4 or 5 years later, FLIR Systems absorbed Armasight in an acquisition and created their OTS, or Outdoor Tactical Systems division, which I was not part of. I was still at ATN at that time. But FLIR did pretty well from what everybody from the outside thought, but apparently they weren't happy how things were going, and about several years later, they decided to divest from the brand and kind of close down that division. And after that, a lot of the people from that were part of FLIR / Armasight created another brand, which some of you may be familiar with, AGM Global Vision. A lot of the people from that side of the fence are originally from Armasight / FLIR, and they make fairly decent products also in the space. And the brand stayed dormant for about a couple of years, and then as recently as 2000, 2001, Essentria bought the rights and all the IP and the brand name from FLIR and restarted Armasight. Dimitri Rockwan, who is the original founder of Armasight, is product head of Armasight currently. And so we have a good team that we're trying to kind of revitalize the brand, bring back to its glory and limelight. And I think as of this SHOT Show, I think we're doing it. We've introduced a new line of product, the Pro Series, based on our Armor Core Gen 4 technology and kind of system. And it was well received at SHOT. We had a lot of positive feedback. A lot of the writers and industry insiders and professionals that visited us and took a look at the product. Granted, it's inside a building, so it's only so much you could see. Ilya, you managed to do some kind of ad hoc testing to see what it is about, and I think you were a little. Yeah, exactly. So again, the man, the legend here, knows things a lot better than even I do. Being in the industry for 20 years, his company builds the testing equipment that tests the military stuff for thermal. So he knows what he's looking at. He knows what he's talking about. So I'm actually honored to be on the program and segment with you here today as well. So again, long-time viewer, first-time visitor. I like optics. I like the space. I like the technology. I love the industry. I've been shooting, all my life since I was a wee little lad, and I love shooting. I love the sport. I do hunting here and there. I'm not a big time hunter, but I like shooting.
We need to
So
go hunting together. I've got ideas.
yeah, okay. You're not too far away from me. You're in what? Arizona, New Mexico?
Oh, I was gonna drag you out to Texas.
Oh,
Go.
okay. Even better. Even better.
Yeah, no, I'm planning a hawk hunting trip with my kids. So
Oh,
what I'm thinking I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to schedule it to right around the time when you have new thermals out. So maybe I'll drag you out with me. We'll go shoot a couple of hogs, drink some nice bourbon, and record a video about new optics. Again, forgive me for the interruption. I have a pathologic inability to stay silent for too long.
sure.
I want to correct something that Steve said. He's basically saying that they just now kind of hit big time with a new core, and we'll talk about thermal cores for a moment. I sort of disagree. I was aware of Armasight, of this rebirth of Armasight for a little while, and I was keeping an eye on the products, and I willfully chose to not get involved because they were kind of getting there. They were not great. And then last year, I saw the Operator 640.
Yeah.
And that's the one I tested earlier this year, and that looked legit. Right?
It's a good system. It was
not earth-shattering thermal that was going to blow my socks off. It's very hard to blow my socks off, right? But it was absolutely legit, right? And it did certain things really, really well, better than a lot of the competition. That's when I asked Steve to send me one to play with, and I spent a lot of time with it. I will, as we talk about it, I'm going to pull up a video to show you. There's a kind of relatively simple test of how to look at the basics of a thermal. And I did that with our Operator 640, and I liked what I saw. So, again, forgive the interruption. Please continue.
No, and I appreciate that. No, again, yeah. Last year we introduced the Operator Warden Commander in the 640 sensor configuration, and yes, those products I think were a step above the previous generation of products that we as a company launched. But again, it takes time. It takes a lot of R&D and effort to be, especially in a very competitive space. Like we have, I think there's like 60 plus competitors, probably half a dozen, which are known in the space globally, right? So there's a ton of competition in the thermal space with a whole host of variety of technologies and products and kind of innovations that companies have released over the last several years. And the thermal space has really exploded a lot, and a lot of people are getting into it: predator hunting, hawk hunting, coyote hunting, or just general homestead protection or farm protection. There's a lot of ranchers that want to protect their cattle because cattle are expensive to lose to some coyotes or other kind of predators.
So what you're trying to tell me is the life of poachers just got more difficult. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not difficult, maybe shorter.
A lot shorter.
Yeah. So that's very cool. So,
but yeah, as you mentioned, the operator, again, a good system. There were some things that were lacking on it. So with the new introduction, not only the core is better on the new line, but we've added audio, which a lot of customers wanted, because a lot of our competitors have audio capture when we're recording video. So it's kind of a staple feature nowadays. So you kind of have to listen to the market and give the people what they want, really, if you want to be competitive in the space. But the core, the drive, the engine under the hood really is kind of the most important part of the thermal device. And, having something that's really competitive in the marketplace is very important because, again, the marketplace is so competitive and customers are so discerning, and they see videos, they see specs, they compare the image quality of videos between the competitors and especially and price points. And not many of those competitors can say that their systems are built, designed, and assembled, manufactured here in the United States. We have a pretty nice facility in Tempe, Arizona, where all that magic happens, and we're proud to say that and to have that in the space. Granted, our product is is more on the premium side, but that goes to show labor, other costs. Plus, our products are actually really well designed and built. Some say they're built like tanks. The housings are fantastic. They're very robust, very durable. Withstand heavy recoil. We design stuff that will meet or exceed expectations in terms of usability, utility, and having product that's focused on the task at hand and can do that task really well. I love seeing the competition coming out with products which are dual, right? 3-in-1. It's a monocular, it's a clip-on, it's a weapon sight, using the same diopter with the 10 millimeter. Did you lose my feed? Give me a sec.
I can hear you, but the video froze. That's very interesting.
Sorry, yeah, because I'm using a
As long as
DSLR.
we can hear you. Like, not that picture is not important, but you're not that pretty, not really that pretty.
I thought I was impressing you with my fancy schmancy background.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, the dual with the same diopter that's not collimated for, let's say, a clip-on or not enough eye relief as a weapon sight, and then it translates into another dynamic of a handheld, right? So if you have a unit's handheld and you want to see the entire screen, your diopter and your eye relief is a lot smaller when you're comparing it to a weapon sight where you need at least like 35 to 40 millimeters of eye relief not to hit yourself in the face if you have a 308.
So for Americans, 40 millimeters is around 1.5 inches, just over. So.
Thank you, Ilya.
Anytime.
Let me see. Let me do my front camera, see if that works. Because I was using a DSLR because it has better quality, but my front camera is connected to my laptop, so I can do it this way. Same difference.
That will be fine.
So, as I was mentioning before, the do-it-all, it sounds really cool on paper. It gives that perceived value to the end user where, oh, I'm paying one price and I'm getting all these cool 3-in-1 capabilities. But if you're actually, a real user, a real hunter in the field, you quickly find that it is really not the case. Because again, if a system is designed to be an observation tool, to see the entire screen, to give you that wide field of view, to give you the best picture possible, it gets your eye really close. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're generally correct. So designing an eyepiece for all of these functions is good. I don't want to go on saying impossible, but it is very difficult.
But with the price points that are offered in the marketplaces, that's nearly impossible, if not improbable.
Correct. At the prices at which it's going, it's not likely. But the only reason I'm being a little bit reticent is that I have not done a full test of a system like this. I'm planning to, and then I'll be able to talk about it with more authority. It is complicated. Okay, so before we talk about eyepieces, one of the things that I kind of want to touch on for a few minutes, and something you said, is that your system is designed and manufactured in the United States. The reason why we've got 60, 55, something like that, companies that make thermal rifle scopes or clip-ons is that there are a couple of major Chinese OEMs that sell cores or the whole optics, and everybody and their grandmother are basically grabbing them and either just slapping their labels on them or doing some mild modifications to the outside, or just buying a core from the Chinese and building the rest of the scope, which is less common. It happens all the time. Armasight is almost unique in that they are not doing that. Making thermal, and correct me if anything I say is wrong, Steve, so I'll just kind of give a top line summary. Making a thermal core is a fairly unusual expertise. Making a thermal rifle scope is a different type of expertise than making a thermal core, right? There is a French company called Linrad. They've gone by many names. The latest one is Linrad. They make very, very nice thermal sensors. They don't make cores, but they will sell you a sensor, and they have some libraries of information, etc., that help you build a core out of it. And a couple of companies are doing that. One of them is Armasight. So the image sensor itself is made in France, and then they bring it here, if I understand this correctly, and do everything here. So not only do they make a thermal weapon sight or a clip-on or an observation device, they actually make the core itself. It gives them more control of what they're doing, and it also gets them away from having to rely on the Chinese. Okay? In the US, there are several companies that make these thermal cores. There's DRS, there is FLIR, used to be BAE, they're out of business. There is FLIR is owned by Teledyne. They actually have a couple of companies. I was in Canada called DALSA. They also make thermal cores. They're all perfectly respectable, but the approach Armasight took, I kind of like, in that they are masters of their own destiny. If they screw up, they're fucked. But, I mean, that's the truth, right? This is not a PG-13 show, really. But if they succeed, they have the level of control in terms of how they deliver the image to you that is above and beyond what most other people can get. So it's a double-edged sword, kind of like the one right behind Steve that I'm real curious about. But it's an interesting compromise. So, and my best guess is that when they first started, there is a learning curve. But what they've got now is legitimately good.
So this is Spanish plate.
Awesome. Very nice. Very cool. I like it.
I'll put it back.
All right. Good to get it out of the picture because it distracts me almost as much as that X over there. Probably shouldn't show you what I've got under the desk. YouTube is going to kill the video. What was I? Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit of a sideline on Armasight. So I've got a lot of respect for what they're trying to pull off. And as of about a year ago, I'm finally really liking the results. I mean, it's looking good. Marcus, do you have a lot of mileage with thermals? I know you're mostly a precision guy, but I don't know.
I have tried one of the 3-in-1s that you guys were discussing. I have the AGM Sting IR.
AGM? Okay.
Yep. And that's it is the 640 version of their Sting IR. I haven't bothered to use it as a clip-on or a weapon mounted yet, so I've only used it as a handheld, and I've been satisfied with it in that capacity. But I am eager to test it in those other two formats and see, how easy it is to change it from one use case to the other.
Okay. Well, so before you jump into that, talk to me. There are a couple of things you have to pay attention to if you're trying to do that.
You got it.
Okay. All right, Steve, I know I rudely interrupted you again. Is that kind of a reasonable top-line overview of Armasight, or is there something else you want to add?
No, that's very reasonable. You're absolutely right. Okay. You kind of hit the nail on the head there. Okay. So, yeah, and we partner with good companies like KDG, Kinetic Development Group, on their mounts. I think we're the only ones that offer that snap-on mount, the return to zero, which is great. I love that on our commanders and our contractor units. They work really well. We use ADM mounts also for our clip-ons. So, we try to be and we are, in my opinion, kind of the more premium line of product where it's, designed, built in the United States with robust housing, with good technology, which we are building on and improving on. And I think we have a great value proposition for the marketplace for those people that are discerning and want to have a product that is purpose-built for the task at hand and do that task really well for them, and they're satisfied. I still have customers kind of contact us, and they still like using the Predator or the Zeus or some other legacy Armasight products, and they're still working 10 years plus. It's just kind of testament of how the brand has always approached the manufacturing process and creating these tools for the industry and the the shooters and the hunters, where they are lasting probably longer than they really were designed to last, because nowadays thermals, the companies that are building these products, they're thinking that, the customer will upgrade within a year or 2 years anyway. So, sometimes quality or shortcuts are taken, and it's, the product just doesn't last as long as it used to. And that goes to show with everything. Refrigerators got compressors go out every couple of years nowadays, or
Let's not talk about refrigerators. That still hurts.
I wanted to go down that channel actually, Ilya, because I'm right there with you on those new fridges, man. They just don't last like they used to.
Yeah. Okay. Again, unless you want to learn some new Russian words, you will understand them. You will have to learn. Let's not talk about refrigerators.
Why is there a story? Is there a story? Did I touch on a tough subject or something? What happened? I'm interested.
Yeah, you hurt my feeling. Like I only have one, and you managed to get it. No, my wife is out of town, and so I looked at our refrigerator, and I'm not impressed. I bought it 2 years ago, and like every shelf's cracked. Ice maker no longer works. I'm like, the fuck. It's not a cheap freaking refrigerator. Yeah, the compressor warranty is 10 years. Great. The compressor is the only thing that's working.
Facebook Marketplace will be your friend, Ilya. You find one built in the 90s, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, I live in Albuquerque. I don't want to think about what my energy bill is going to look like with a 90s refrigerator.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the backup you needed to go buy anything off of Facebook Marketplace in Albuquerque.
No, I'm the backup.
It's true enough.
But anyhow, so I do want to get back to Steve's new course, but what I want to show you a video that I did when I borrowed the Operator 640 clip-on from Steve. My original plan was to go hunt hogs, and then my dad fractured his ankle in 3 places. So my dad's in a nursing home. We moved my mom into assisted living. My wife's 94-year-old grandma 3 weeks ago fell down and broke her hip. So we've got a shit show of family issues, kind of all at the same time. And all my grand plans all went to shit. So I sent the clip-on back to Steve, and I was trying to figure out what can I record that would be relatively meaningful. And I want to do something different than what most people do. Usually, if you look at all the reviewers who review thermal optics, aside from the fact that most of them can't spell thermal, but aside from that, they're not looking at the right things. And that said, I've talked about it a little bit in the past, but in a nutshell, thermals are not there to show you a pretty picture. Most of the Chinese-made thermals are tuned from the factory to bump up all the mild contrast so you can see the terrain relatively well, but that actually makes it harder for you to see what you're supposed to shoot, right? So thermals are there for targeting, not for looking at pretty pictures. It's for finding warm-blooded objects. One of the things that makes it incredibly hard for thermal optics to show you what you really want to see is the sky, because as far as the thermal is concerned, the sky is infinitely cold. So maintaining the dynamic range in the image where you're seeing a good part of it is you're seeing the sky looks very dark, very cold. For thermals, it's very difficult, right? So if half of the image is the sky, how do you show this warm object with earth, ground of some sort in the background, where the temperature difference between the sky and everything else is much, much higher than the temperature differences in the rest of the scene you're looking at. So I took a reasonably decent thermal compatible rifle scope, which was Element Theos on 2 power, the same scope that's in my hand, set up the Operator 640 in front of it. I did this on a fixture, not on a gun, because you will see the reticle aimed right at a human being. The human being is me, and I am not going to aim guns at myself. I'm crazy. I'm not stupid. And it's a video of me walking out to the brim at 100 yards with a cigar. You'll see me shake this cigar ash off at 100 yards. And about a third of the image, the whole top thing that looks very, very black, the white hot, the top of the image is the sky. It's not a pretty image. It's not designed to be pretty. But the big question is, in these relatively difficult conditions, would you still be able to aim at the right part of a human silhouette. In this case, the human is me, so I didn't put anybody into harm's way. So I am going to play this. Notice that it's not going to look ultra contrasty or any of that sort of nonsense. It just kind of white. See everything up top. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Everything up top here that's black, that is the sky, and it is so cold, it keeps the contrast of everything else relatively limited. The berm that we're aiming at, there's a steel plate there. It is thermally almost indistinguishable from the berm behind it. When I was doing this, it was about 25, 26 degrees, relatively cold. So I'm a much warmer object in the environment. And despite the sky screwing things up and make it very difficult for contrast enhancement, my human and silhouette with many, many layers, I was out there for a few hours, is easily distinguishable. Okay. You can see the berms further out. The big berm that's out back, that looks like it's not that far away, it's about 420 yards. I could comfortably engage something the size of a human to 400 or 500 yards with this thing. For hunting, where you have to hit a particular part of an animal, I'd say 400 is a reasonable limit. So that's me. I'm using a cigar to keep me warm. That's in my left hand on the right of your image. So I'm going to wave my hand momentarily, and you'll see a piece of ash right there. That's a piece of ash falling down. So that's what this thing could resolve. You could see the image. I considered flipping the camera off, but I was wearing gloves, so it didn't seem like it would be particularly productive. Okay. The image was, there was something flying over there. That's interesting. It's the first time I see that. The image was focused right around 100 yards. The depth of field is very respectable. To get the sharpest image, you do have to shift things a little bit here and there. But in order to shoot, so now when I'm walking now at about 40 yards, you would have no issues engaging the target without having to mess with focus. If you want to see the picture at its sharpest, yes, you have to mess with the focus.
What was the day optic magnification on, if you don't mind me asking?
2 power. This is 2 power. Okay. So the only real weakness of the operator, and Steve, you and I have talked about this. Let me put us back on. Is that the way the menus are done on 2 power, they're a little bit tricky to see. So
yeah, that's actually in Pro Series. That's been updated to have it when you bring it up. It's in the center, so it doesn't matter what magnification range you're using. You'll be able to use it.
And that's the right thing. That's the right thing to do. But from the standpoint of giving me what I actually need to see without overcrowding, without overboosting unnecessary details, the operator is excellent. Okay, and I gave it a very, very tough scene. Usually what you see people do, they aim a little bit further down, so you see everything of roughly the same temperature, and then the pig or the human or whatever you're aiming at just glows, right? Well, that's a very easy thing for a thermal to image. The sky in the image, that's very hard. And the operator pulled it off just fine, and I assume the Operator Pro is going to be a step up for them. Okay. Interestingly, I also did the same video with a night vision clip on, and I'm going to publish a video with both, so you guys will be able to see side by side the same exact experiment, just to show you where thermal has an advantage and where night vision has an advantage.
What's your ranging methodology there? When you're talking about engaging a target, say at like 400 yards, would we try and mill and estimate range that way, or?
No, you kind of, at night you don't mill and you don't estimate. You can. Some of the scopes give you this reticle, but generally speaking, have a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder, either integrate into the thermal or standalone, just range with that.
Or basically being in a known environment where you know the ranges, because
in this case,
with thermal, it's depth perception is very limiting, and it's hard to kind of discern the exact ranges.
So in principle, you can have an electronic reticle generated. The operator does have a reticle that you can use for some rudimentary ranging. I'm not a big fan of ranging with a reticle in the dark, even if we're dealing with a thermal, because thermogram is a very different thing than a conventional image that we're also used to. There is something called Johnson criteria developed at Night Vision Labs some years ago, originally developed for night vision devices. And I used that as a basis and derived some basic criteria for hunting, right? So how far can you engage an animal? When we're talking about thermal, we all talk about something called the DRI network, DRI criteria, D, detection, R, recognition, I, identification. To detect something that something is warm out, they just need 1 pixel that's warm, right? So you know there's something out there. Recognition is when you can recognize it's kind of a living thing, right? Something warm-blooded, there's a shape to it, etc., but you're not quite sure what it is. Identification is when you can easily tell, recognition is when you can tell if it's a bipedal animal, a human, or a quadruped. Identification is when you can tell a difference between a dog and a pig and a deer. For identification, basically you need to have about 13 or so pixels on target, ballpark. So if you look at the size of an average hog and the length, etc., and figure out how 13 pixels fits into that, that gives you enough information to shoot the right spot of an animal. I've got a whole Excel sheet of different of that calculated for a variety of different thermals, etc. Yes, I make everything nerdy. Don't laugh at me.
Fair enough.
If it wasn't for people like me, you guys would still be dragging rocks and sticks around and hitting each other on the head.
That's for sure.
I love it.
Yeah. It's, don't hate on the nerds.
Nerds rule the
We'll
world.
make stuff you'll use.
We say that around this house.
It's kind of a, it's a funny thing. My wife grew up in Israel, and she was growing up when there was this quote unquote Russian invasion of Israel. Soviet Union collapsed, and 1.5 million Russian Jews just descended on Israel without knowing the language. So, when the kids would go to high school, naturally Israelis were making fun of the Russians and all that sort of stuff. The fun stopped by the time they started getting into college, because the Russians were pissed and irritated and really, really, really wanted to do well. So now they, no, of course, a lot of the Israelis who were making fun of the Russians now work for the Russians. It's kind of how the world works. But I digress. So, Steve, with the new Pro line, so there's going to be Operator Pro and Contractor Pro, right?
Well, it's actually the entire product assortment. So the Contractor, Commander, Operator, Warden, even the older models like the Sidekick, Jockey, Collector, they're all being upgraded to the Pro line. They'll all have 640 cores. They'll all have audio recording. They'll all have the new 1.8 gigahertz quad-core processor incorporated in the systems. So it's a complete revamp of the entire product line and assortment.
That is very cool. Okay. So that sounds very promising. They had a couple of samples at SHOT. I looked at them rather carefully. They looked quite good. Just because you are a good man and you were brave enough to come here, we're not going to have the NATD discussion right now.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But what I heard, from a man named Coop, is that Steve agreed that Armasight is going to sponsor a side stage at the TRT Sniper Challenge. So
that's putting me on the spot.
I promised to not put you on the spot on an ATD. But I also promised Coop that I'm going to put you on the spot on the TRT Sniper Challenge. So.
Okay. Fair enough. Coop's a good guy.
TRT Sniper Challenge is in August. It sounds like we're going to have... So last year we had a kind of a side stage. It was some little bit of a competition. Coop wants to do a side stage that will involve shooting something with a thermal. So I'm going to bring a thermal clip-on with me when I go there in August. I don't yet know which one, but I'll come up with something. Thermals are
you guys going to tie up a goat or something as a target for that stage?
I don't know. He said he already talked to some company that does thermal targets. So we'll see.
I think Ton from Firebird, that exploding
Maybe.
thermal targets, that'd be kind of cool.
So making a thermal target is a very, very straightforward thing. You take any target you want and you tape a bunch of hand warmers on the back of it, and it becomes a thermal target. Although, to be fair, it's going to be in August in Montana. You just paint it black and leave it in the sun, and it's a thermal target.
Or just aluminum foil tape. That works just as well.
Something like that, yeah. It's all. Either way, we'll figure that out. So it's not a problem. For those of you guys who don't shoot with thermals, thermals are here to stay. I suggest you familiarize yourself with the technology. It is getting bigger and bigger. It used to be a real cottage industry. Or some Joe Bob from the next borough was selling thermals out of his basement. Not anymore. Now it's serious people, serious companies, serious product lines.
You can't avoid it. Look at the war in Ukraine. It's all about thermal and drones, and/or thermal weapon sights and thermal monoculars to detect the enemy. It's today.
It's very hard to hide from a thermal. Although there is a company at SHOT Show that was doing thermal camouflage that actually looked pretty good. They had samples there and they had a thermal camera set up. It was not bad at all. But they are out of Czech Republic, so for them, dealing with Russians and thermal drones is potentially an existential issue. They're spending a lot of time and effort on it. So.
But was that camouflage absorbing heat, or was it like, because I've seen a bunch of various quote-unquote technologies about thermal, but if it's like a ghillie suit and somebody's wearing it, the heat transfer from the body eventually will seep through.
Correct.
It's like, unless it's some kind of space age material which kind of absorbs.
So it's a little bit like a ghillie suit, but it's also a somewhat different material. It's super heat permeable. I have a suspicion that it. That's a good way. So.
Audio cut out. Can't hear you. Ilya. Marcus, are you there? I can't hear you either, Marcus. Huh. Something's up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I think my microphone just cropped out. That's disappointing.
I can't hear Marcus now. I don't know if you can hear me.
Marcus, say something. But you can hear me, right?
I can hear you, yeah.
And Marcus can hear me, and we cannot hear Marcus. Technology, my ass. And what is really interesting is that the charger for my microphone is nowhere to be seen. If I lost it, I will be extremely upset.
Mic check, 1, 2.
Oh, there you go. You're working on
I'll
Marcus.
figure that out.
I'm back.
Okay. So we were talking about, is there any echo or anything like that, or you guys can hear me okay?
I got you, Ilya.
Right. I'm just using the microphone from the computer, so go figure. We'll just have to do that. Yeah, thermal camouflage. So, it works reasonably well. I'm going to see if I can get them to send me a sample of the material. I can take it to work. A lot of the instrumentations used to develop AR camouflage is something we make for my day job. And I can do some spectral measurements and see what exactly the material is doing. How they do it is complicated. Figuring out what it's doing is not rocket science. I can do it in 2 hours.
Yeah, you were theorizing. You said it was very heat permeable, right?
It looked like it was very heat permeable, and there was gilly stuff on the outside, so which can mask it for a little while until there is some sort of thermal equilibrium achieved. So maybe when you wear it for a while, it warms up, it doesn't work anymore. Or another possibility is that you can, with some materials, depending on how you do the chemistry, you can control in which spectrum it spits out energy. To stay at thermal equilibrium, it needs to be emitting energy somehow, right? All of these inexpensive thermal cameras work in a range called long wave infrared. That's where all the uncooled imagers work. So, for example, you were able to make a material that is designed to emit more in other spectral ranges that the uncooled thermal camera doesn't see, that would work as an effective thermal camouflage for inexpensive drones. Now, a lot of the more expensive stuff works in other spectral ranges or broader ones, and it would not work for that. I do not know how that Czech company does it for sure, but if they send me a piece of that material, I can figure it out in 2 hours.
And you'll close the company then.
No. I didn't say I can figure out what it does. I would not be able to figure out how necessarily to do it if it is some sort of a different chemistry for the materials.
Oh, well, actually, I wanted to ask you a question. So you mentioned the LWIR with the MWIR or SWIR.
Yes.
There are different spectrums. I'm familiar
Correct.
with the spectral ranges.
Mhm.
Do you think that those technologies are being used much more so on the kind of a higher grade military capable
Yes.
gear
Yeah.
because of the way those systems work and how they can the detail that goes
So
with those systems and some of the other technological advances that they present.
yeah. So for thermal observation and targeting for the high-end stuff, it's primarily midwave MWIR. To do that, you need to have much more expensive image sensors that have to be cryogenically cooled, although like they keep on bumping up. They used to work at minus 200 C, 77 Kelvin. Now a lot of them work in 150 Kelvin, minus 150, something like that. So they're getting better. There's a big advantage there with cooled sensors in that you're trying to push me into an ATD discussion. They're much more sensitive, although they're much more expensive, and it's much easier to use longer focal length long lenses. With uncooled optics, there's only so far you can look because you have to keep lenses at f1 or thereabouts, very, very large aperture for the focal length. F1 roughly means that the limiting aperture is roughly the same as the length of the lens, right? So that means that if you want to look very far away, you need a long focal length lens, right? So if you need a 500 millimeter focal length lens, that means it's going to have 500 millimeter, 20 inches aperture. That is just not practical. Aside from being enormous, it immediately becomes so expensive that it doesn't matter how inexpensive your sensor is. So all of the airborne stuff, all the targeting things on your MTS and native layer and all sort of stuff, it's all midwave. Even on the mid-sized drones, the main camera is usually midwave, MWIR.
So what you're saying is, so there are no handheld systems in that spectrum. What about like
There are, but they're expensive. Like for example, FWS sniper part is sensors, is systems like HISS and all that sort of stuff. Those are rifle mounted cooled midwave, but they are, I actually don't know how much the government pays for them. They used to be in the $65,000-$70,000 range. Now they're maybe 40, 45. They're not coming down to $6,000 anytime soon.
So they're all cooled. There's no
They're all cryogenically
cooled.
Yeah, they're not microbolometers. They are conventional narrowband gap image sensors. So microbolometers do see in midwave. They're not really all that wavelength specific, but the catch is that when you look at the normal temperature stuff, like where temperature of the human body a little bit lower, those temperatures produce comparatively little radiation in midwave. The peak emission there is right around 10 microns, 10.5, right in the middle of the long wave range. So microbolometers and shorter wavelengths have a hard time. They exist, but for very specific applications, nothing needs to be quite hot for microbolometers to see in mid wave hotter than humans. However, these
for
food
fire.
sensors that have, go ahead.
No, like for fire detection.
Fire suppression, etc. You can have a microbolometer that also sees in midwave, but now you start running issues into optics, because the optics for midwave versus long wave are often a little bit different, made out of different materials. That was actually one of the interesting things I saw at SHOT Show. So I go around and I look at different thermals. One of the problems we're having in the uncooled long wave thermal world is that the vast majority of the lenses that are used for it are made out of germanium.
Right.
And our friends from China have had getting germanium made it a little bit difficult. So Leo at Torrey Pines, he had a really decent thermal clip-on that was
Charcoal.
using
I've seen those.
chalcogenide lens.
Around for a while, yeah. Isn't there another
Chalcogenide,
besides there's three: germanium, charcoal. I can't pronounce it for the life of me. And there's
chalcogenide.
a third one. Yeah, charcogenide. And there's a third one, I believe, right? Also, right? If I'm not
You can make them out of silicon. Silicon is transmissive there. There are a couple others. I have not seen another cheap material. Chalcogenide is relatively cheap. It's kind of specialized things to work with. LightPath is really good at it. And I'm assuming that the Torrey Pines lens is made out of chalcogenide as well. It's very easy to make tiny little lenses. He made a 35 millimeter lens out of chalcogenide, and it looked good. So there is a U.S. government right now is investing a ton of money into decreasing our dependency on Chinese germanium. So something good's going to come up before too long.
interesting.
Okay. I am going to leave the floor to you two gentlemen because I need a quick pit stop. So I'm going to mute myself, and you guys can discuss whatever you saw at SHOT Show, and I'll join you in 2 minutes, okay?
Sure.
Sounds like a plan, Ilya.
I have complete faith in you. Make me proud.
Do you have the elevator music you can cue up for the background?
No. You guys can do the elevator music. Sing if you have to.
Well, did you get to look the booth?
So you look through the chat box. If something pops up that's within your wheelhouse, please address it. I'll be right back.
Yeah, Roger.
I didn't get to venture too much. We were pretty busy. We did have a few like celebrity guests. Donald Trump Jr. stopped by our booth to look at the product. Also, Tulam with their own tactics also stopped by the booth. Also had a conversation with them. A few others, probably not as well known, but it was pretty very busy for us. We were in Caesar's Forum, kind of in a new spot, because last year we were kind of more toward the back of Caesar's Forum, where the actual entrance is to that convention. This year we were closer to the bridge, so the bridge that takes you from the Venetian to Caesar's, we were right across the bridge, so that was kind of convenient and nice to have access, to those people that are going back and forth between the two
and more pass-through
facilities
traffic too, probably, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and for people that aren't familiar with SHOT Show or haven't seen the massive floor plan, it's kind of held there at the Sands Expo Center, right? First floor, second floor primarily. And
plus, there's a third floor up the escalator for kind of the new product center. No, fourth floor was new product center or new vendors. Then the third floor, the third floor was some other stuff. I believe some other. Plus, they also have like a whole floor for media and university because they have various classes for marketing, industry, FFL, export. They do all these things. So dealers and vendors and brands can be on top of kind of the due diligence that has to do with everything in our industry, really. So because we fall under a lot of different regulations and criteria, which we have to kind of follow and abide, like thermal night vision. Most of our stuff is ITAR.
Yeah, you'd have ITAR classes or something like that going on every now and then, right?
Absolutely. And it's very that's so kind of cumbersome and complicated, and I still don't, for the life of me, don't understand why we still have to, abide by all that because there's all this technology available from China and other places around the world where they could ship here without pretty much any problems. We can't ship out without a DOJ DDDC license to export stuff, the same stuff. Even if it came from China and I wanted to resell it to somebody else, it's the same product to somebody else in South America, just for an example, I have to get a State Department license. Where if they send straight from China to South America, they have their own regs, but I don't think it's anywhere as stringent as we face basically on a daily basis. So I think the law is like that, where the laws haven't caught up to the realities of the modern age of where technology is and who has what, because we're still under the doctrine of owning the night and having the best technology, which we do, and we don't want to export it to entities which shouldn't possess this technology. So our forces maintain the advantage and edge, but all this stuff is readily available from other countries nowadays that it's not really a problem to obtain.
Yeah, the Ukraine conflict has kind of shown that to be quite the case with drones and thermal and night vision and everything else. The off-the-shelf solutions are readily available at this point. So,
absolutely. To catch up, Ilya, we were just talking about the idiosyncrasies of ITAR and export, and how it's funny that you can import from China and the same product you can't export it out without a license. Where
correct. The moment if you bring a thermal camera from China to the United States, if you try to get it out of the United States, you're violating ITAR. The moment it touches U.S. soil, it is U.S. technology.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Yep.
But okay, let's get back though to SHOT Show. Steve, unless there's anything else about Armasight you want to mention?
No, it's just, we want to be the best, and we'll get there. It's just taking us a little more time. And advice from people like you and some other industry insiders. We give products to test is valuable to us, and your relationships are key in this industry, and they'll be key for years to come because the people. That's what drives the industry. That's what drives the technology. The connections, the networking, the feedback. You can't do it in a vacuum. So it's much appreciated. The camaraderie and the hard facts of what brands and companies need to do to stay relevant, basically.
So I will say this: you gotta commend these guys on their bravery and their confidence in their product. Most thermal companies out there, once they figure out what I do for a living, will not touch me in this space with a 10-foot pole. Right? I understand why. If I was them, maybe I'd do the same thing. But on the other hand, it also shows a little bit of a lack of confidence on what you make. If you are not sure that your product is up to snuff, or even if it stands out, I am dangerous. And Steve knows it. And he knows, despite our fairly cordial relationship, I will absolutely not hesitate to rip a new one if there's something I don't like. That's how this.
That's
what journalists works.
Right. No, absolutely. That's the business. That's the business.
Correct. So the fact that you're actually willing to deal with people like me shows that you have faith in your products, and that's a big deal. Okay. All right. With that, so let's go back to Day Optics. Let's go look through the chat box. I don't want to leave questions unanswered for too long. Steve, you're more than welcome to hang out and stay with us, or whatever you're up to.
If there's some questions that are.
Yeah, I'm looking through it. I'm not seeing stuff on thermals. I'm seeing stuff on laser rangefinders, conventional optics, that kind of stuff. But do stick around if something comes up. It would be useful. If you need to go, then I'll make sure the questions get to you. It's entirely your call. These things that I do, they're relatively unstructured. I just kind of ad hoc them and try to answer whatever questions come up.
I know. Again, long-term viewer, first time visitor.
Right. So you're familiar with this scattered Brownian motion here. Okay, good. I always with normal live streams, what I usually do, I have a speech for about 20-25 minutes on some particular topic that I wanted to cover, and then we just descend into madness. In this case, I figured we'll start with the madness and go from there. So going from the start, what did I think about primary arms 1.5 to 12? So that's what we were discussing before Steve showed up. That's the scope. I am very impressed. I think it's one of the better medium power variable optics on the market right now, but it is designed and intended for a very specific use case where you can shoot quite far, but you're supposed to be using primarily the reticle. You can dial with it. It has a repeatable turret, but there is no zero stop, which is a limitation. On the flip side, it is stupid fast. Illumination is very bright. The mill reticle is not bad, not ideal by my standards, but reticles are very individual. The eyepiece is one of the best in the business in terms of how easy it is to get behind. For a relatively accurate AR that you will hunt with, you'll put a thermal in front of, etc. It is almost ideal the way it is set up, because it is under 20 ounces. It's a hair under 10 inches in length, I think, or right around 10, something like that. On 1.5 power, it will work with nearly any thermal clip-on in the business. Optical quality is very consistent across the magnification range, and on 10 or 12 power, you can reach fairly far out there. It's an extremely capable optic.
So people use the term a fast scope sometimes, Ilya, or something like that. Can you kind of explain that a little bit as it pertains to this scope and the short setup?
Fast on target, right? Fast meaning fast on target. One of the things that everybody should do once in a while, take your favorite scope that you put on your AR-15, put it on whatever magnification you want, usually on lowest, and simulate clearing a building or target transitions, something like that. And you will very quickly figure out that some scopes are just harder to get behind and harder to see the target than others. If a scope is fast, it means the eyepiece is designed to be forgiving, easy to get behind, and well corrected, so the field of view is relatively flat and relatively distortion free, and it has a very easily identifiable primary aiming point. Right? For example, all of the precision reticles that you and I love so much, they are terrible at this kind of stuff on low power. Right? Within the precision world, so Marcus and I shot a hunter match together, and since then I've been trying to get him to come and shoot a hunter match with me, but it seems to be a little bit afraid.
We'll make it happen again.
I'm just messing with him. He's a much better shot than I am. But in our world, there is also fast, right? You have limited time, 10 seconds, 2 plates left. You get on target. If the scope is finicky, if it's not quote fast, it'll take you that much time to properly acquire the target, put the reticle on it, etc. So I've designed a lot of reticles for a lot of people, and there are several. When I just started doing this, I saw all these Horus reticles and some of the early ACSS ones, for high power scopes that I didn't like, and all sorts of other stuff. I'm looking at the thing going, like, this is bullshit. Like, these people don't shoot, right? And a lot of people who buy these things, Tremors used by US military, right? So these guys shoot. That would probably shoot better with something else. Lots of people buy super fancy reticles and shoot paper at 100 yards, never do anything else. When you've got this beat up grayish plate in front of a grayish rock at 570 yards in the middle of nowhere in buttfuck Wyoming, and you're trying to get on that thing, you have 8 seconds left, you will know what a fast scope is. You have to have an easily identifiable primary aiming point. When you get it on the plate, you have no doubts about what you're aiming with, and you can get behind it comfortably. That's why nobody does this on 40 power, right? There's no such thing as a fast scope on 40 power. Right? Does that make sense?
Makes good sense to me.
Yeah. I do have a question regarding the clip-on. What's your opinion regarding clip-ons that mount directly to a day optic? Like with an adapter,
like Europeans do.
Right, because like I understand when you don't have a long rail and you're using a traditional bolt-action rifle, centerfire rifle. Does that, do you think, affect the the weight of that attachment to a scope? in the long term? Do you think it may damage your scope?
It's not going to damage the day. So it's not going to damage the day optic. It can shift the point of aim of a day optic, or it might not. It depends on the day optic. It depends on how heavy the clip-on is and all sort of stuff. I don't particularly like that method simply because you don't know, and it's not straightforward to figure it out. And then if the clip-on is attached to your day optic, if you somehow bump it when it's already attached, it's a much longer lever, and it has a possibility of shifting your point of aim. Most rifle scopes, if you bump them, they spring back to the same place, but not always, not under all conditions. It's basically not unknown that given a choice, I would prefer not to deal with. It's the same business, Marcus. I'm sure you've seen this. You will see people who, when they're trying to press their rifle into the shooting bag, they will press down an objective. Don't do it. It's not a good idea. Most of the time, it's going to be fine, but not always, and you don't know for sure what kind of deflection you're introducing. So, if you want to keep your hand up there, put a diving board in your mount and press on that. Don't press on the objective of the rifle scope. It's very common in Europe because for them these long Picatinny rails are restricted. It's considered a military technology, so they have to do it. Given a choice, I prefer to put the clip-on on a long rail in front of the scope. Now, the advantage of clipping this mount to the front of the rifle scope, and I had one here for the first gen Leica Colornox. Maybe I moved it somewhere. I don't see it.
This would be like the Leica, right?
Yeah. Well, Steiner and Leica, they have it. Leica does have a Picatinny mount. I have one, so I don't have it here. So one of the advantages of clipping it to the objective is that this mount blocks all of the light that comes around from the outside, not from the clip-on. So it actually helps you maintain image quality if it's not dark, because additional light that's coming into the objective of the rifle scope around the sides is decreasing the perceived contrast if you are using the thermal during the day or dusk when there's still some ambient light. So that's the advantage. The disadvantage is the potential point of impact shifts and hanging weight on a day scope and all sort of stuff. If you have an AR or something with a long rail, mount the clip-on onto the rail. I think that's a safer way to go. Also, for example, I have a 458 SOCOM that I often use to hunt pigs. So all these mounts that clamp to the front of the rifle scope objective, they depend on friction. Friction does not survive 458 SOCOM recoil. So if it's a kicker, I would suggest pick rail or check your mount frequently.
Okay. Makes sense.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's see. Going back to the chat box. So primary arms we talked about. I'm sure we'll come back up.
You wanted to talk about something about night vision. You were alluding to comparison to night vision.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but then I looked at the clock and realized I've been at it for an hour and a half already. So I think I'm gonna do a separate video where that video I showed you down at the range. So I recorded the same thing with thermal and with night vision. I'll make a video when they are side by side, and you'll see how the same scene looks different. I think it's better to have the discussion then when I have an edited video with both of them on the screen at the same time. So we'll probably skip night vision for now. There's not a ton of time. So here's a question about the Voodoo 4-12. That's going to be a little controversial. So EOTech released Voodoo 3-9 by 32 last year. And that's an amazingly compact scope, impressively compact. And then in the typical EOTech tradition, they made it second focal plane and screwed up with the reticle, which I thought was very unfortunate. This year they introduced a 4-12 by 36. It's also, I think it's, I want to say 7 inches long, something like that.
I think they're virtually the same footprint.
Almost the same footprint, very like half an inch longer and slightly larger objective. And this one is 4-12. And why do I not see a picture? And it's 4 to 12, 36 millimeter objective. There's no side focus. And there are two reticles. I saw the one with reticle called MD5. And I thought that was an abomination of the reticle for the scope. It's basically a fully illuminated tree with no thick bars. You're going 4 power. And it's kind of like an undefined blob in the center of the image. So there's allegedly different reticle. It should be a little bit better. But I didn't see, unfortunately, I didn't see that scope. The field of view, so once you get up to about 12 and you have fairly short optics, the depth of field is not awesome. So I have some significant reservations about how well that scope would work without side focus. I don't know what market I don't know what market EOTech is aiming for. It's just like this. It's just unclear to me because when you are making an optic that short, one of the things that has got to be on your mind is used with thermal clip-ons, right?
Yep.
There it is. I found the picture. I'm gonna pop it on the screen. Well, if you are planning to use this thing with a thermal clip-on, under what insane circumstances is making this? Here's the 4 to 12. Under what insane circumstances is it a good idea to make the lowered magnification 4? Right? How many clip-ons out there work really, really well with day scopes with a base magnification of 4 with the regular field of view, not ACOG field of view? Okay? It's nice and short and it's compact and it's light. Packaging is done very nicely. It has screwy reticle and wrong magnification range. 3 to 9, I can kind of see it. 3, it's still okay. There's a big magnification is multiplicative. There's a huge difference between 3x on the low end and 4x as far as thermal use is concerned. I don't get this, and it's EOTech, right? So I spent a fair amount of time there. I don't know anybody at EOTech. The one guy I know who does some work with it, he wasn't there. So, I spent 15 minutes there. All the EOTech guys were talking to each other, looking at me from a distance, trying not to get within arm's reach. So I hung out for a little bit and left. I don't understand who this scope is for. And if you're not gonna use it with a thermal clip-on, make it 3 inches longer. Like, what's the big deal? Right? I like short optics. Look, I've got these here. There's a reason for it, but I like how short they are, partially because I want to use them with clip-ons. Right?
Maybe to compete with the ACOG. Some more
ACOG. So no, you don't need to compete with the ACOG anymore because ACOG is not real relevant anymore. The market, so the military world has moved on to 4 power. Military world has moved on to low power variables. That's kind of the big deal. The new battle sight is an LPVO, not a prismatic. The ACOGs are being phased out. There are no military solicitations that I'm aware of for a fixed power prismatic, at least not the big ones. The only prismatic that's still winning some new contracts is a switch power Alcan 1x, 4x, and for good reason. It's a very interesting optic. Everybody else is going to low power variables like the AMG and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the 1 to 10s, right?
Yeah, 1 to 10s, 1 to 8s, 1 to 6. There's a variety of different ones.
So I did get to speak to one of the sales reps while I was at the EOTech booth.
Okay, good.
I did not get any more clarity on the exact use case that this was, specifically designed for. In seeing their marketing material, it looks like they're showing it with law enforcement situations as a DMR scope, right? And the ability to put a clip-on in front of it. So yeah, that's kind of what
Great.
they've shown their intent was, just in their marketing.
So night vision clip-ons will work better there. Thermals will work kind of okay, but you're losing a lot of what you could do with the thermal. So I don't know. It's mystifying to me.
Well, for law enforcement, you want to, because of the whole PID, right? They need to be certain of the target before they can engage. They're forced to use night vision at night. They can't really use thermal because they can't really discern potentially the suspect with
Yeah, maybe
a
maybe that's
friendly.
it. Maybe it's for night vision clip-ons, and like they tolerate a little bit more magnification better than thermals do.
The other
So
thing that
maybe
was fascinating to me on this scope, though, Ilya, is the weight, once again, because I think when you read the included weight on the spec sheet, that includes the mount. And so that was one thing that I was looking at, where you are getting 12x magnification on the high end for a relatively lightweight scope.
yeah, but you're getting 12x in a very short scope without sight focus. So your ability to see far is going to be limited. Now, law enforcement guys don't care about seeing far. So maybe Steve is right. There's for law enforcement.
Yeah,
guys.
the average engagement for a sniper team is 75 yards or
Yeah, correct. But they do observation and Overwatch and stuff from a little bit further out. But yeah, and they went through all this effort to make an optic that's very small. But then in the booth, not a single one of them was sitting behind a clip-on. So like I don't know, like
they should
none
have
of this makes
contacted me.
sense.
They should have reached out to Armasight.
Yeah, I'm sure. EOTech, yeah, they're certainly lacking in thermal clip-ons. Yeah, they bring in the ones from Greece that are actually quite nice from Theon. So I don't know. And then the reticles didn't make a ton of sense to me. So I'll try to reach out and get some sanity out of this. But none of this is really making sense. Last year
I'm
they
willing
showed
to go
the 3
forward
to
with that
9, and they
PID theory. I
showed
like
it for
that.
fencing.
Like, inside 200 yards or something like that, having that 12x to get a really good positive identification. That makes sense. I could go with that.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason. It's a very limited use case. I mean, right? The catch is that, okay, so why this versus a less expensive 2 to 12 from Athlon? That's $500. Will work with all the clip-ons, but it's 11 inches long instead of 7. Like, if you are an LE sniper sitting somewhere on the roof and not going anywhere, it makes no difference. Sorry.
What about something that's shorter, like a SBR type of scenario, or a shorter kind of?
They are not. Law enforcement is not putting magnified optics on SBRs. Military does. Right. You're probably right. Again, but I've never seen that properly articulated, and I'm going to try to get some clarity on that. On the flip side of the coin, I really like the fact that people are doing very short optics, even though I'm not necessarily super excited on how they're going about it. Eventually, it's going to converge to something good. And again, like these primary arms is technically considered to be an ultra short, and I'm very happy with what I'm seeing. It's not, it's not as short as the EOTech, but it's super compact. And also this that EOTech is 4 to 12. 7 inches long. This is a 1.5 to 12 that is 9.8 inches long. That does everything the EOTech does, and everything that EOTech doesn't do, and everything that EOTech does, this does better. For more money, this is probably a couple of grand. The EOTech is like $900.
With parallax and a really
with parallax, with day bright illumination, with you name it.
Nuclear bright center reticle that you can pick up at 1.5 magnification and shoot quickly.
So I put it on 1.5 power and did some target transitions. I'm not as fast with this as I am with the red dot or good low power variable on 1x. But the moment the whole speed argument is really interesting in that, we tend to think about it in terms of competition, right? How fast you are to target. And I shot one black rifle match. I really enjoyed it. I'll do more. Again, I'm more of a precision guy. But I've done things where you kind of go through the dark shoot house. We've done this during the day, done it at night with different optics, with handguns, with rifles, and all sort of stuff. And when the targets are set up where you don't know what you're supposed to shoot or not, what you're not supposed to shoot, everything changes. And I've done this a couple of times in. It doesn't disclose anything. In complicated wooded terrain, where you have to do target identification a bit further out, and all this 1x shit doesn't work. All right, it's not CQB anymore. If you need to figure out if the head 50, 60 yards away from you is something you need to be shooting, a little bit of magnification goes a long way. You will shoot slower, but you'll identify what the hell you're looking at much faster.
Yeah, I'm with you. Those old tests, because I remember early on when the LVPO, the low power variable optic, was a thing. First coming out, people wanted to run them against each other on the range, right? And say, okay, well, this isn't as good as a red dot. And on the range, flat range with cardboard targets, where everything is a shoot, yeah, it's not as fast. But like you're saying, as soon as you have to distinguish a target or locate a target or see into a dark area or into the shade or anything else, it's not even a competition. It becomes you can't see it on 1 power, and you can with the magnified.
And that's one of the big advantages of low power variable, as I've talked about in the past. If you know you're going to be clearing a building, go get a red dot. To be fair, for guys who are highly trained, modern, well-designed low power variables are as fast. The guys at Bragg did this, at least 2 different groups that did this. For guys who are highly trained, no practical difference in speed. For guys like me, there's a difference. I'm faster with the red dot or with the holograph. Not much faster, but faster. Right. It's the moment you introduce target identification, low power variables rule, because you can immediately bump up your magnification a little bit and figure out the hell's happening. And the reason why they're replacing both red dots and prismatics is that prismatics were great to identify the target. You lacked some speed, low power, and offset dots and stuff helped it a little bit, but it's an incomplete solution. Dots was super fast, but lacked ability to identify. Low power variable, occasionally with a piggyback red dot sight, is a perfect combination. Even with the red dot sight, the way they're mounted, one of the biggest misconceptions I see on all the forums, you go on like AR15.com and all that, where everybody is a super ninja, right? They're all convinced that this piggyback 12 o'clock dot is for speed. That just tells me that they've never done this and tried to aim. No, the piggyback red dot is there for night vision. You got goggles on your helmet, you pop them forward, you can't use a scope, and you look above the scope at the red dot. That's what they're for. Like every time you see a military contract where you see a low power variable and there's a dot on top, everyone out there immediately assumes it's because low power variable is not fast enough. Nonsense. They all go fast with the low power variable. If the dot is at 12 o'clock, it's for night vision. If the dot is offset to the side, that's for speed, and we can be very fast with that. Right. That makes sense?
Makes good sense, and that's why you never see the 12 o'clock dot on the 3-gunners guns.
No, never. Doesn't work. I spent so much time with it. I've got a 4-power Alcan that I love, well, not as much as my kids or as my wife, but more than quite a few of my relatives. Again, not my brother, he watches this, but I've got a red dot at 12 o'clock. I took a bunch of classes with that combination. I can use it kind of adequately well, but you know what I started doing? So I've got the dot at 12 o'clock. I tilted so that the dot is in front of my left eye, and I'm faster that way than trying to lift my head up and use it. So it just, that part of it just does not work amazingly well. With something like this new primary arms, where the lowest is 1.5 power, I'm not as fast as I am with a red dot or low power variable. But with this reticle, with this illumination, 1.5 power, I can clear a house. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to slow me down that much. It's not going to be the limiting factor. And if we're talking about a range, a larger piece of land, something with terrain, this will kick the shit out of any non-magnifying object that's been ever built or ever will be built.
And probably better than the low powers as well, because it has that parallax, so we can.
For typical defense situations, parallax is not a huge deal. Most low power variables have enough depth of field for that. That's not really a major concern. It'll do better in low light. The objective is a little bit larger. It's just a very, very good general purpose optic, right? There are it covers a very large envelope of applications. Low power variables will be somewhat more limited than this at distance, but fast on 1 power, and they are designed around 1 power, right? If CQB is part of the envelope, you want a low power variable. If CQB is not a major part of the envelope of the applications, then medium power may be better, like the modern good ones. A couple that I have here also good. The element, it's a 2 to 10, but it also has a diffractive dot. I don't know if we have time. I can put it in the column actually. You can look at it. Different designed, a little bit more precision oriented, also very, very well done. And for distance, it's actually better than the PA, but it's bigger, heavier. Optically, it's just spectacular. I think I have a question about that. I'll get to that in a moment. Moving right along. So we're at 1 hour and 46 minutes. For those watching on locals, I think there's 1 or 2 locals is going to crap out after 2 hours. We'll still be on YouTube and Rumble, and I'll re-upload the remaining stuff on locals later.
Actually, I need to go. I appreciate the time. Hopefully you'll have me on again. Marcus, great to meet you, sir. We'll have other discussions, hopefully. Again, you have a question, you know how to reach me. Happy to oblige.
Thank you for joining us. Really do appreciate it. It shows a certain amount of bravery, some masochism too, but those often go together. All jokes aside, I do this once or twice a month. You're always welcome. There's always something to discuss, and we'll stay in touch.
Fantastic. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Take care. Bye. All right. Good dude. I've known him for quite a few years now, this guy.
Yeah. Did somebody ask about the laser rangefinders?
We'll get there in a second. I'm just going in order. This one. So, what was I say? Yeah, with Armasight and Steve, I wasn't joking about bravery. Like, they know I'm dangerous, and they're still willing to do this. So that's that speaks well of them. Did you discuss the Apex Prism 1 to 4? I haven't yet. It's kind of interesting, and the similar design has showed up with 3 other manufacturers. Some were already showing, some were just prototypes. So did you make your way over to Apex, Marcus?
No, I didn't see this one. And is it a 1, 2, 4, or is it 1 and 4?
No, it's a variable. So what they did, so there's a LCAN is a switch power.
Right.
What these guys did is really interesting. So they basically have in one package something that's basically 1x prismatic, and then in front there is a variable power, and there is something called afocal magnifier. I've seen them done with thermals. I haven't seen them much with day optics. It's almost like a variable magnifier, like you would use with a red dot, but designed a little bit differently, sitting in front. And they're all sitting in basically one tube. So your magnification is happening up front here. The lever is right around the objective. You rotate something up front to change magnification, not toward the back, like you do with conventional scope. So your eye would be here, light coming out of here. This is your eye. Okay. It's kind of an interesting idea. It functions basically like a second focal plane, 1 to 4 low power variable. And this afocal magnifier is very short. So this whole thing is like 6 inches long. Okay. So that's a very interesting idea. It is a second focal plane that I'm not necessarily super excited about. But it works for 1 to 4. That's fine. On the Apex optical looked very nice. Field of view on 1 is wide. The magnification was very smooth. The whole thing is compact. The reticle is a little mystifying. It's kind of like a dot and a horseshoe, then a lot of empty space, then some holdover stuff. I don't have the dimensions, so I need to look at it more carefully. I think Sightmark had a somewhat similar one with a fiber illuminated dot. And Zerotech, I think, has one somewhere, but I haven't seen it in person. It's kind of an interesting idea. I've been running around with an idea, an ultra short low power variable for a long time, and this is kind of it. So I like the concept. I'm just curious about how the reticles are going to work out. One of the companies I'm very friendly with showed me a prototype based around the same idea. So I'm very curious what they're going to do with the reticle. But this is something I'm going to look at in a moment. And this also would work spectacularly well behind a thermal clip-on, for example, because it's so short.
Kind of back to that EOTech use case or
Yeah,
whatever.
the same basic businesses. Interesting idea, interesting implementation. The product looked pretty mature. I kind of liked it, honestly. And for this type 4 low power variable, short is really important. Right, one of the reasons I like this new AMG 1 to 10 so much, right? It's super short. It's amazingly good on 1 power. So, but the Apex one is promising. It's a little expensive. Sightmark is cheaper, but again, I haven't looked at it super carefully.
How generous is that exit pupil or the eye box? Because
it looked pretty good.
I find that's one of the problems generally, right, with the Prism sights is they can be harder to get behind.
No, they don't have to be. They don't have to be. iBox doesn't. So with the ACOG, the iBox is very tight, but it's specific to that ACOG. It's ultra short eye relief and very wide angles, so it's hard to make good iBox. I did several comparisons of 4X prismatics some years ago. One of the reasons I like Elcan the most was that it was, to me, a fair bit more forgiving to get behind. And optically it was better. But I looked at Hensoldt, Trigicon, Leupold Hammer existed back then, which is actually quite nice, and Elcan and stuff like that. So ACOG had a very wide field of view and very tight eye box. I have the Israeli copy of it. Meprolite made this first thing called X-Forge, same thing. So I still have it for nostalgic reasons. It's a very nice optic, good optical and everything, but the eye box is tight. It doesn't have to be. It's just how that one, that specific.
The ACOG in particular, then, huh?
Yeah. All right, here's the more MPVO questions from Mr. Northman. I'm completely lost now. What about PA 1.5 to 12 or NX6 or Theos? Ferengali said NX6. Pretty sure you'll say Theos. And what about the PA and the fact it didn't have zero stop? So I covered most of it. I looked at the NX6 at ShotShot and actually liked it quite a bit. But it was more of a conventional optic, a lot longer than these. And since for me, medium power variable implies being very easily compatible with thermal clip-on, I put a lot of emphasis on the scope being fairly short. It makes a big difference for me. Theos is extremely capable, but I think it's almost 30 ounces just by itself. So this is 10 ounces heavier than this. But what Theos does really well, it has a proper dual turn zero stop world class, one of the best turrets in the market for elevation. So this thing is amazing. It's not as good as Tangent, but it's close. Okay. So they have illuminated reticle, also diffractive. The reticle itself is a little bit more precision oriented, but because it's so bright, it actually works well across the board. They did something super clever with parallax. They put a detent at 100 yards, so you can always get it back to 100 yards without looking. Numbers are big. Image quality is excellent. Just it's a really nice scope. My biggest, my biggest complaint with it, honestly, is that if you look at it, the windage turret is covered, but the turret is fairly big, and with the cover, it's even bigger. Right? It's a good size turret. It's excellent turret, but it's good size. And if you're trying to set up an offset red dot, it kind of it needs to be very offset to clear the turret. That's probably my biggest complaint.
Yeah, it looks like they almost just put a cap over a full-size windage turret.
Or for all practical purposes. Now it's waterproof if you pull off the cap, but the cap itself, but the turret itself is fairly beefy. Because Theos is their precision line, so they basically made it like a compact, spectacularly well designed precision scope for accurate ARs. Like if I was a law enforcement sniper doing Overwatch, of all of the ones I've seen to date, I would be using this. Right? Because the fact that it's 30 ounces is not a huge deal. You're not hiking uphill with it. It's super easy to get behind, superb image quality, great low light performance. The way the reticle is done, you can go fairly fast and precision is easy. The turret is amazing. Like this is the perfect law enforcement precision scope, or as perfect as I've ever seen. Right? As an MPVO, medium power variable, the PA is a pure expression of the form because it's smaller, lighter, and goes down to 1.5, so even better with thermal clip-ons. Is the distinction relatively clear, or kind of makes sense? Not so much.
Makes sense to me. It is surprising, though, that they couldn't work out some form of a zero stop, even if it was like the old Viper PST, brass shims that you were stacking in there.
They can and they will. So they have this, what Primary Arms has, they call it a cassette turret on this whole PA line, and maybe on this also. The way they developed this, they have a very solid engineering team in-house at Primary Arms. And they developed this new turret design where it is kind of cross-compatible between different scopes. And I don't remember for sure if this is one of them, but I think it is. I think as they get different versions of their cassette turret, they'll be able to get zero stop on this thing if they need to. So I think I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to promise anything. I'm relatively friendly with the chief engineer over there. I'll ask him. But again, since both Primary Arms and Theos came up, the rifle you're gonna hike around with and do hunting, etc. This thing is awesome, especially if you clip-ons. If you want a compact, beefy scope that will absolutely not hold you back on precision, look, I could take this, 10 power. I could take this and shoot a hunter match in 10 power and not be shortchanged. Like there is nothing we do in a hunter match that I cannot do with the 10 power scope when the 10 power is as good as this guy is. Okay. Make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, moving right along. So Mr. Banger 3X. Is the NX6 possibly sacrificing any tube strength just to get some lighter weight? So the whole tube strength argument is mind-bogglingly stupid. People like to make it. It's retarded. I think it was mostly started by people from March that like to talk about tube strength. That's a stupid argument. NX6 is going to be nice and robust. It's a well-known designs. Nobody's sacrificing anything. And on top of it, tube doesn't weigh anything. Most of the weight in the rifle scope comes from glass and from various brass fittings in the turrets and stuff like that. The aluminum in the tube, weight-wise, is negligible. You can make the tube 4 times thicker and add half an ounce to the weight of the scope. Right? So no, the whole tube strength business makes no difference for it. I heard Tract has a rangefinder with proper wind buttons. It does. And I know for a fact that Mr. Marcus over there saw it. You're welcome, Marcus. So what were your thoughts about that Tract rangefinder?
I was really impressed with it. Like we were talking about, I think the new display or readout for the new generation of rangefinder binos is pretty impressive. And yeah, the Tract in particular had that function of doing wind correction based off of the electronic compass, right? So basically, it was taking cosines for us as we're rotating around various compass headings. Is that kind of answering that question? Is that how you read that?
Pretty much, yeah. It gives you a fairly quick means of adding wind values, and then because it has a compass, as you rotate and change, it will adjust to what you're doing. So the wind buttons is interesting. I thought SIG had a patent on it, so I don't know how other people are doing it. There's also a Swarovski patent on the battery inside the focus wheel. But I saw several binoculars over there that were using both wind buttons and centrifugal. Maybe they have arrangement with Swarovski. or maybe Swarovski and SIG don't care about them. I don't know. So in terms of laser range-finding binoculars, this was an interesting show. That was one of the kind of cool things there. Tracked has theirs. It's 10x42 with very good display. Eagle Ballistics integrated, so it'll work with Eagle Ballistics app with John Engelman. I don't know John. I've heard good things. I should go meet him. But a smart guy and very well done display where you can kind of define how much you see, how much you don't. Everything is snapshots, some things, etc. Very customizable. Good user interface. Just an extremely competent binocular and very good. It seemed to be very good optically, almost no tint, virtually no tint. I could see it inside. I'll probably be able to see a little bit outside. I don't know, but very, very little. So I was very impressed. And then it's going to retail at about 2,000, which may sound like a lot, but hold my beer. Also, Apex showed their laser range finding binocular. I think it's the same OEM as Tracked, and theirs is a 12x50. It wasn't fully integrated. The one they had at the show wasn't quite fully integrated. So not all functionality was there, but that one has applied ballistics built in. It seems like it's going to be around $3,000 or so, and it also looked very nice. Again, optically it looked very nice, and the way they did the matrix display and all that also looked very, very decent. So that's going to be, I think, a strong competitor. We'll see what the final price is going to look like, but for competition shooters, 12 power has a little bit of an advantage over 10. For hunting, I'd go with 10 probably. For match shooting, I'm thinking about switching to 12. I've been using 10 power. Leupold came out with their BX6, and while Apex and Tracked looked like to me like they were made in the same OEM, there are certain telltale signs. Leupold's a different one. Leupold had a 10x42. It also looked very nice, and they had Hornady's 4DOF integrated, which is kind of a cool thing. I'm not a huge fan of the 4DOF interface, but the ballistics is very solid. Especially if you're using Hornady bullet, it's wonderful. But generally, ballistics are done in a very solid way, which I like. I think it was like $3.5 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but it also looked quite good.
So I think that's a really interesting point, Ilya, and maybe now would be a good time also to mention Vortex, who wasn't there, right?
Yeah, I was just getting to that. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe I'm jumping the gun, but we're talking about 4 different types now of ballistic solvers across these 4 different range-finding binos.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is one thing that is changing in the industry right now is acceptance of other ballistic solvers and maybe the applied ballistics monopoly in that space is being diminished at this point.
It's not diminished, it's coming to an end.
Right.
They will remain a significant player, but it's not going to be a monopoly anymore. We'll see. So the least known of this is Eagle Ballistics, but it works well. Vortex bought GeoBallistics, and they're using that. So I do not use Hornady's 4DOF very much. I use GeoBallistics and Applied Ballistics all the time, and for me, they both work quite well. Before this year ends, I'm also going to try Eagle Ballistics and possibly 4DOF. I don't know when Leupold is going to have theirs. What Vortex did, they introduced the Talon HD 10K binoculars, and they introduced 2 versions, 10x42 and 12x50. They're not made in the same factory, I believe, as Tracked and Apex. There are some similarities between them and the Leupold, but I don't know if it's the same OEM or not. My plan is to get my hands on a 12x50, maybe next month sometime, maybe in March, and I'm going to use it in a Laramie match in April if all goes well. Vortex they introduced it during SHOT Show, though they were not at SHOT Show. Vortex did something very, very clever. So they introduced the 2 range-finding binoculars, and they introduced their competitor to the Kestrel called Ace that I'm also going to get. I'm very excited about that. It promises to do some things for me that I actually need. And they introduced something they call the relay network. And they leaked all this earlier, but now it's all formally introduced. And the relay, basically, it's built on the back of Bluetooth communication, but it's a more robust protocol in tying all these devices together. For now, the relay-enabled devices are going to be this new Talon, whatever, whichever is the right way of pronouncing it. Is it Talon or Talon?
Probably Talon.
Talon, okay.
Because
take it from a native
like birds, So.
Yeah. So Talon laser range-finding binoculars, the existing Impact 4000 weapon-mounted rangefinder, which I happen to have, and this ACE weather station, they all talk to each other via this relay network, which allows data synchronization across the board, more robust protocol, better connectivity. So AB, Applied Base, has been trying to create this system with different brands, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I've had mixed success. I can make it all work, but there's a lot of double checking, triple checking, etc. Vortex, with this whole relay thing, if you are within the geoballistics ecosystem, is making all these data consistency seamless and communication seamless. And that's kind of a big deal. And on top of it, for people who teach classes, etc., but then for law enforcement, if you have everybody on this relay network, the instructor can see what all 20 students are ranging, right? It's kind of an interesting thing. It has a lot of potential, but even for me, this ACE weather station, looks a little bit like Kestrel, that has a weather vane and a compass and all the usual business, but it has more modern screen, modern user interface, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to do this customized range cards, so they're all on the same screen. So what I want to try during a match is, let's say I have these 4 plates. Right now, what I do with my binoculars, I find the plate, I range it, I figure out what my holdover is, write it down on my arm board, try to landmark that plate, etc. Then go to the next one, and so on. I've seen people with this Garmin 4Tracks that's hooked up to AB, just go click 1, 2, 3, the range, record, and they have their range card for that stage on their, essentially on a big watch. ACE promises to be able to do the same thing for me, okay, while in real time giving me wind, right? So I want to see how quick and efficient it is, and I'm gonna have it probably next month sometime or March. How, if I can, rather than writing things down, if I can use ACE hooked up to my tripod or something as a weather station and a range card.
So how are you going to recall your data when you're behind the rifle then?
Same way as it is now. It's going to be on the screen, and I'm going to go look on the screen right now. Look at my arm board, so I can look at the thing. I just need to find a way to set it up where I can easily see it.
I feel kind of like the Kestrel HUD solution is almost like the missing component of that ecosystem from Vortex, where you have
Where it's
something
hooked up to the gun.
weapon mounted, a weapon mounted readout where it's.
So yeah, in the Hunter, if it's weapon mounted, you have to weigh in with it.
That's true.
So that's why nobody uses it in the Hunter, right? So I'm gonna find a way either to hook it up to the tripod or hook it up to me somehow, or at least experiment with it and see. I don't know if it's viable, but it's worth it's worth trying, because I was thinking about buying the 4Tracks, but if the Vortex ACE does the same thing for me while updating the wind data in real time, I think that's worth trying.
Now, how's it going to update wind data if you're wearing it on your arm or?
Well, if I hook it up to a tripod or something, it just sits there and measures wind, right? It knows its orientation, so it has a compass.
Yeah.
So I don't know how valuable the wind part is, but it's worth experimenting with. You know what? I started doing this Hunter stuff a year ago, and I've had a blast. But I intentionally kept all my gear fairly consistent. I didn't try to solve any problems with gear.
Yeah.
Right. Now that I have, and remember we talked about how many matches I shot in 12 months. So it's been a few. I became a slightly better shooter, but I became a much more knowledgeable shooter. Right. It's gonna take me some time and effort to get my skills to match my understanding of how this stuff works. But now I feel like my understanding of how this stuff works is pretty decent, much better than it was a year ago. So this year I'm going to make some gear changes, small ones, nothing major. One of them is going to be trying to use Ace, because Kestrel, I only use it to get density out to do an occasional wind, and that's it. Otherwise, I don't need to use it for anything. If Ace works for me, Kestrel is going to be on the market. I'm not super happy with that device.
On this topic, I think it's interesting. Somebody was saying to me in a conversation I was having over SHOT Show that really the average long-range shooter should be very thankful for Vortex, even if they are not Vortex fans or they don't run Vortex themselves, because Vortex pushed the envelope in the industry.
Very much so.
I mean, when you look at it, like the Viper PST Gen 1, for example, at least on paper, it had the appropriate specs with first focal plane, mil reticle, mil turrets, at a time that Leupold was kind of dominating the precision rifle industry in the military and law enforcement side of things, and was still giving you a mil dot turret with MOA clicks, right? And so I feel like this is kind of the next iteration maybe for Vortex, where they are kind of trying to challenge some other people.
Vortex is big enough where anything they do will impact the industry substantially. Anything they do. The PST was a big deal. It had early issues. They were not all created equal, but two of them were pretty decent, and they had staying power. And PST Gen 2 is legit. That's why it's been on the market for so long and still sells. So Vortex going into this integrated world in the way they are is pretty impressive. You always have to keep in mind, remember, they developed that XM157 thing with the integrated display, active retic, and all sorts of other shit for the military.
Yeah, the fire control system.
Correct. They're not going to make that whole thing available to civilians anytime soon, but I can guarantee that at some point some of the technology is going to proliferate, right? And you will be able to have a lot of this stuff inside the scope. So I don't know how much, etc., but I'm sure they're looking at it and thinking, okay, what can we do with that? So staying with the theme of laser rangefinders, Mr. Nadia Riyad, I don't know how to pronounce it, 7421. Did you get a chance to look at the Garmin Zero L60i rangefinder? Looks like great technology, but I don't see a real need. What say you? Well, discussing real need is tricky because most of the things we discuss about, I don't know if there's a real need. Right? It's a very saturated marketplace. But I did look at the Garmin laser rangefinder. It's a monocular laser rangefinder with a very super sophisticated integrated display in there that can show you maps and all sorts of other shit. And very good laser rangefinder, very sophisticated laser. So they did a laser rangefinder with one receiver and two bore-sighted lasers, right, to get more distance and more accuracy without breaking the eye safety rules. If you've never tried to bore sight two lasers at 3 miles out, you're missing out on some of the world's greatest masochistic endeavors. The fact that they pulled it off in a commercial instrument is actually really cool. But they did. It's kind of $2,500 for a monocular laser rangefinder. It's very hard for me to say whether it's worth it or not, but I will say that I was impressed. How well the laser really works, I can't tell you from inside the show floor. I'm gonna try to get I gave them my card. If they want to play, they'll reach out. That's kind of a litmus test for a lot of these guys. It's I kind of know who I am, know what I do. So they know where to find me. I'd like to test one. It's optically it kicked ass. It was one of the better, from an image quality standpoint, one of the better LRF monoculars I've seen to date. The best one I've seen to date is Leica monocular. Oftentimes I used to have, when I gave it to my hunting guide, he needed a better LRF, so I gave it to him. It's really cool because it's tiny. I would have it in my pocket when I go hiking or something, when I didn't feel like dragging a bunch of stuff with me. If I went to look at something, I just used it as a monocular because optics was so good. When I was looking through that Garmin, I look at it and I'm looking at little details in the shadow up under the ceiling there. It was good. Like optically, it was just excellent. So whether they'll be able to sell a lot of them for $2,500 when you can buy a tracked LRF binocular for $2,000 is an open question. But it's definitely worthwhile from a standpoint of build quality, image quality, and the technology integrated. It does have integrated applied ballistics. Garmin works with AB. So I don't know. It was pretty nice. And for people who prefer separate binocular and LRF, if they're willing to spend some money, I think this is an interesting device. Not very big, not very heavy. Great laser rangefinder, great software, good orientation. They have some additional brains in this. Even if you're looking at something that's technically beyond the lasing range, they can figure out within 100 meters where it is. Something, it's 8 miles from you. They can still pinpoint roughly that spot on the map, and you'll be able to walk there. It's got GPS and everything. It's got a lot of cool things for a hunter who wants to keep binoculars and LRF separate.
Why would that be, Gio? I mean, for me, or sorry, Ilya.
Yeah.
Why would somebody not want their LRF in their binos? That's the tough sell for me. Is like.
So for two reasons. One is that if you just bought like an Octavid, for example, maybe you don't want to go and replace it with another $4,000 LRF binocular. That's going to be great LRF, and optically is going to be not quite as good as your Octavid. If you are demanding the utmost best and imaging performance out of a binocular, even the best LRF equipped binoculars are still a little bit of a step down. Not much. The nice ones are very nice. But still, like if I'm very fond of Leica binoculars. They, the way they do images agrees with my eyes. And Octavid is legitimately better image quality than my GeoVid Pro. Not much better, but it's better. If you're a Swarovski guy, the way they tune images works for you, the NL Pure at the same magnification is going to be better than the LRF Swaro binocular. So that's one.
So
another one is
prioritized clarity, like image quality over workflow. That would be a time that you would choose to use two separate items.
For me personally, and I'm very picky about image quality, for me personally, I switched completely to LRF equipped binoculars.
Right.
Because the nice ones are good enough. But it took me a while to make that switch.
So my other question on that technology is they were talking about being able to guide somebody in on the same target and that sort of thing. And that was fascinating to me. I know in the past there have been challenges, though, with the accuracy of the electronic compasses. And if you cannot get down to like a degree of accuracy, which is 60 minutes of angle, it's pretty tough to talk somebody in on a very specific target.
They talked a bit game, and I have enough familiarity with Garmin devices to know they don't bullshit all that much. And this is the kind of thing they know really well. So
they know geolocating.
I'm gonna tentatively assume they know what they're doing there, but the proof is in the pudding. We'll need to test it. But anyhow, to finish my original thing is that another reason to potentially have them separate is redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If let's say you are out, you're not hiking uphill where every ounce counts, but you're on a sort of massive backcountry hunt where you can drive in somewhere with a side-by-side, or you're on a horseback, etc., and it took you 2.5 days just to get there. You want to have a binocular, and you want to have a monocular, because if your binocular takes a dump, the monocular of the quality of the Garmin you can use just to look for stuff. It's really good optically. It's not a full replacement for your binos, but it'll be much better than your naked eye. Right?
Yeah.
So redundancy.
As far as the technology, these guys aren't the first ones. Wasn't it SIG a year or two ago that was talking about dropping pins on maps based on
Leica can drop pins on maps, SIG can drop pins on maps, but the Garmin shows you a map and the image.
So I think that like that personally, I guess I'm answering the question here for myself, but I do see like an actual use case where if you shot something across a canyon, sure would be handy to be able to drop that pin and then navigate to it and not have to rely on your cell phone and a separate map, but actually be able to use that same unit and
for example.
see that map. Yeah, so I don't know. That seems like feasible.
It's it's $2.5 grand, so it's expensive, and we'll see. But I can, I can think of situations where I think it's going to be very useful if it does everything they say it does. Right. So, look, hold on a second. I just realized I left the light on my collimator, and the bulb's going to burn out. Hold on. All right, I'm back. What was I saying? If everything works. Yeah, Phil Vallejo, remember? So when he first started doing videos about Neural Hunter, do you remember he was glassing with his Victronics laser rangefinder monocular? Like doing hunter stages with the monocular because it was small light, and that's what he had, and had a great laser rangefinder. So you can do a lot of things with a nice monocular if the quality is there. All right, the one and only Sherlock. How usable is the Reticle 1.5x without illumination? Pretty usable. I would have no problems using it. It's relatively bold, it's not bad. Not bad at all. And that's kind of interesting. I wish most scopes use the setup like the Swarovski 5 with 3 stacking dots for elevation adjustment. That's that turret with different colors. The original patent was held by Hilux. They used to license it out to Swarovski colors and others, but it may have expired since then. There are a few different ways of doing this. Schmidt has one. They have flags. Hilux had one. Swaro has one. It's kind of like a version of a turret BDC, and it works nicely. What I don't like about it makes for a relatively tall turret, so don't know. And I'm sort of constitutionally suspicious about BDCs because how different they are at different altitudes and everything. But for hunting purposes, we are staying within 500 yards or something. That's all close enough. So I don't know. It works well, but I'm so used to twisting turrets with milliradians on them that I'm not sure I care. But I can see how a lot of people do, and it is a good way of doing it.
And the poor man's version is just turret tape, right?
It's turret tape, or for example, so this GPO, it's a 4-16 by 44. They sent me with an updated reticle. It's actually a good reticle for this kind of stuff, decent reticle. There is a certificate for Canton turret. I can work out the ballistics and get a Canton turret. It will do more or less the same thing. So, but maybe the stacked dots are easier to see in low light or something. I don't know. Either way, there are many different solutions for this same problem that are conceptually similar, and they all generally work. So. Well, that's a question. Any chance to look at the new Athlon Ares HLR series? It's kind of interesting. I was going to do a full shot show overview, and I only got to like 1/8 of it, so we'll probably do another one next week. So Athlon moved most of their manufacturing to Japan and Philippines, with only maybe 10-15% of what they do still in China. I think Midas BTR and Helios BTR are still in China. Athlon Ares HLR. Ares is their high-end line, and that's their relatively lightweight hunting scope that's going to be now made in Japan. It's relatively simple, second focal plane, couple of normal turrets, looked very nice optically, and the 4-16, I think it was a 4-16 version, if memory serves me right, was under 20 ounces. I took a picture of it. That's what I'm looking for right now. Is that Athlon? No, that's not Athlon. Schmidt. Night Force. I like the new Night Forces. Night Force and X6 were nice scopes. There's some guy there was October, was super nice, showed me around, and he actually knew who I was, so it was nice to not be yelled at for once. I visited Athlon on Thursday. after you had that conversation with Hornet.
Right.
Oh, there we go. So I think this is it. These are RSHLR scopes. Yes, so there is 2.5 to 15 by 42 and 4 to 24 by 50 RSHLR. Let me put them on the screen. I'm just trying to zoom in a little bit. This is what they look like. There we go. So they're about same size. 2.5 to 15 by 44 is on the left. Surprisingly, it's slightly taller, kind of a slim, long design. It's like 19.5 ounces, something like that, and looked very respectable optically. So I'm probably going to look at it. It looked very decent, good turrets, good optics, sight focus, illumination, everything. It looked very decent when I looked at it at shot. So it's definitely something I'm going to look at. Athlon has a huge product line, and I simply, I can't look at everything. But I'm going to basically pick one Japanese scope, one Filipino scope, and take a look sometime this year as they get in inventory. We'll see. All right, guys, it's been 2.5 hours for me. I'm going to give it 5 more minutes. If there are any questions about any specific brand, I suggest that you voice it now. And if not, I'm going to look at my schedule and see maybe we'll do this again next week, because I have, my son had his jiu-jitsu class today, 5 to 6. So I actually sat there, looked over the pictures, took my writing pad and did, 2 pages of notes, what I wanted to talk about. And I got to like an 1/8 of it because we went on a tangent, and it was good for Steve to join us when we talk about Armasight. Again, thermal is coming in a big way. And I like that we have non-Chinese options now. I don't pass judgment. I have Chinese thermals, I have non-Chinese thermals and all that, but I disclose where they're from and you can choose. I like that we have similarly priced options that are not from China.
Absolutely. As a teaser for next week, are you talking weapon-mounted rangefinders?
We're going to talk about that a little bit because Arkin introduced one that would be potentially very useful. It was small. It was $600. I'm kind of looking a little bit at weapon-mounted aiming lasers and stuff like that. There is a good amount there. I was incredibly impressed with the Steiner Atlas. Those ergonomics and everything are really kicked ass. Very good user control, very good ergonomics, just very, very nicely done. There's some things about it flew completely under the radar to talk about with Burris. Some kind of oddball things that I think are actually pretty cool. We didn't really talk about Leopold, Swarovski, image stabilized spotters. There's a ton to talk about. But, I can't do it all in one evening. So, that's that. Okay, so I'm gonna give you 2 more minutes. If there are no more questions, I am going to wrap this up. What does your schedule look like next week, Marcus?
It'll be about like this week. Do you want to do it Thursday again? Is that actually? Yeah. Yep.
I usually do them in the Wednesdays or Thursdays. Thursdays is sort of my preferred day.
Okay. It would be similar for me. I had rugby practice until late. So.
Rugby, still.
Yeah. No concussions though today. So, just like you said. Oh yeah.
But no promises about next week. Okay.
Don't take concussions as old men. That's the lesson that I brought home from SHOT Show.
No, don't. Yeah. Look, I stopped sparring like 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. I'm done. I'll hit bag, I'll coach, I'll do clinch with people, etc. As far as proper sparring, I'm too old for it. My ability to recover is just not the same.
Yeah. Plus, that brain's too valuable, I guess, huh?
Well, it's not as valuable as I think it is. No brain is as valuable as I think it is. but it's not even that. Honestly, you know, the way I fought, I didn't take that much damage on the head. I got hit in the body a lot.
Yeah.
But like boxers get a lot of damage, not as much as football guys. But I'm not a good boxer. I'm more of a general purpose martial artist. You know, it's fun and it's useful, but I was more a martial artist than a fighter. I like the art of it. I like learning. I like training. Fighting itself, you know, did not excite me nearly as much.
You know, one of the things that really stuck with me, and this was somebody's assessment of mixed martial arts in general, was martial arts, the art portion of martial arts is being able to do it to somebody else without having it done back to you. That's what truly makes it an art.
It's the ideal, right? In practical terms, with opponents of roughly similar skill, it doesn't happen. That's one of the reasons why so many of the classic martial arts that got too preoccupied with that concept didn't survive the real world encounter when we started doing what became mixed martial arts. But one of the things that, you know, I remember I started with, with judo, but then I did kung fu for many, many years, which has not distinguished itself in the modern MMA world. But one of the things to keep in mind is that a lot of the classic martial arts were built around the use of weapons.
Yep.
Right. So, and the moment you introduce a blade, everything changes. The moment you introduce a gun, everything changes. The moment you introduce a blunt trauma weapon, everything changes. MMA is still a sport. It's the closest we have to real fighting. It's closer than boxing, closer than Muay Thai, closer than Jiu-Jitsu. That's why there are so many different ways to win in MMA. It's still a sport that has rules, and anything that has rules is going to be gamed. People who win MMA matches are incredibly good fighters, but they adapt what they do to fit the rules. We don't have anything without rules, nor should we. MMA is something that gets us close. But if you look at the evolution of MMA, first it was grapplers, then it was wrestlers, then it was strikers, then it was wrestlers. Now we have truly general purpose guys for a little while, and now all of a sudden you see the people who are winning, who are decent general purpose, but they have one overwhelming strength. Either overwhelmingly good striking, or overwhelmingly good wrestling, or overwhelmingly good grappling, but they're good at everything.
If you look good enough to make sure that they get to play to their strengths for the majority of the time they're out there.
Right. So like people like me who were very specialized, I'm a striker, don't make it now. Right. So what? Yeah. What was so funny?
Oh,
no, you just now read my T-shirt?
I was thinking that I was pretty sure you were decent at judo as well. So
I'm decent, but I'm not good enough for the guys to work with the guys who are really good. It's the same thing like grappling. I'm not a good grappler at all. I'm old, mean, treacherous, and I weigh 300 pounds, right? So, I mean, it goes a long way. But I'm not a good grappler.
Yeah. I've been using that old and mean lately, actually.
Yeah, you're going to get there. And the worst thing is at some point you'll be using this old and mean, and then at some point you realize that it's true. So,
yeah.
Mr. Blind Spotter goes, thanks. Very interesting that Athlon is doing more outside of China. Yeah, I talked to them a little bit, and I think they're getting fed up with the tariffs and the up and down and all that sort of shit. So they're just sick and tired of that crap. They're still doing a good amount of stuff in China. I'm sure they will. And even with this stuff, people do out of Japan and Philippines, honestly, like I don't always know if it's really Japan or Philippines. They say, oh, we're just taking the same designs and making them elsewhere. I don't know if it means they actually make them elsewhere, or if they go to a Japanese factory says, yes, absolutely, goes to the Chinese factory where the thing is made and says, send it to me with the IP separate, screw the IP sold in Japan, hold it in the warehouse for 6 months, then sell it as a Japanese good. I have no clue. I don't know how it can be easily tracked. I don't know if anybody's doing it or not doing it. In the grand scheme of things, I don't usually care because I can't go on there like this, jump into every rabbit's hole. In this case, I've known Athlon guys for a long time. They're stand-up people. I assume they're doing what they're really doing. But it doesn't mean that whoever they're dealing with in Japan or Philippines is not quietly telling them, eh. Or maybe they went to a Japanese OEM and they saw a huge order and they said, yes, absolutely. And this first current generation of product, they're going to do something funny, right? And then when they go to Gen 2, it's going to be a true Japanese product. I have no idea. Any of these options are possible. I don't know which one it is. All I know is that the product looked good. So wherever it's made. So that's that. All right, we got to wrap it up. So let's do this again next Thursday, where we'll do a little bit more. Marcus, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for
I
having
really
me.
appreciate it. Thank you all. If you have any questions, put it in the comments, whatever platform you're on. I'm going to dig through everything before next week, and we'll pick it up again. Thank you all, and good night.